Well, I think the question being raised about women's ordination is very important, though I don't think that's the question. I think the fundamental question is there any room for any discrimination in anything that has to do with Christian life on the basis of sexuality? So whether, you're dealing with a man or a woman. And frankly, I don't see that that's an appropriate issue. I think that feminist scholarship particularly has pointed out the way in which Jesus himself refused to conform to the kind of discriminations that existed in his own culture, in his own lifetime. As a matter of fact, he was a bit of a public scandal from all we can gather because of the way in which he granted equality to women. And I think for about a generation that prevailed in the life of the church, and then other cultural influences from Greco-Roman culture began to diminish it, and so on and so forth. So I think the fundamental issue is, if you're going to talk about ministry within the church or to the outside world, your fundamental question is, who's capable of doing what needs to be done? Period. And I think that while the ordination of women can be a kind of a symbolic thing, recognizing the fact that there is, in every serious study that I know of, both historical, theological, or scriptural, has indicated that there's no intrinsic reason that would argue against the ordination of women. It's very interesting right now that I've been doing some work along with a colleague of mine by the name of Gary Macy, who is a first-rate medieval historian, and particularly a historian of medieval theology. And we've been going through all these texts, and the ordination of women was a very much debated issue over several hundred years in the Middle Ages. And the arguments don't go very deep, and there are about three of them, and they keep being repeated verbatim from one man to another man to another man. One of them is, that Jesus never ordained his mother. Well, the answer to that, of course, is also that he didn't ordain anyone. He only ordained men. He didn't ordain anybody. There was no ordination. And so they say also he ordained only, the 12, and there were no women there. Another thing, of course, they're working on this idea that you shouldn't ordain women because the nature of things is women are meant to be subject to men. It's the way God created things, and that they have kind of certainly lesser intellectual capacity, and they are emotionally a little bit fragile. Well, that's, to be perfectly blunt about, that's a lot of nonsense. So there's no, as far as I'm concerned, I think theologically it's a non-question. But it's a social status kind of thing. It's certainly a power thing. It's the whole influence in Christian circles of a fundamentally patriarchal cultural structure, because hierarchy is nothing more than a different word for patriarchy. Instead of being, the domination of the fathers, it's the domination of the holy ones. So I think what needs to be done more than anything else is simply to adjust our cultural societal values.